This video is going to be your go-to guide on the Behr paint color called Arcade White. So if you were looking for some information on that color, you don't gotta go anywhere else. I gotcha. The name does a pretty good job at explaining what type of color to expect. More modern arcades wouldn't contain much off-white like the paint color suggests, but you'll definitely see this type of color in the traditional sense of the word, like the arcades that can be found in ancient Greek and Roman architecture. Kind of like the arcades, or the arches, of the Colosseum. The materials that they used don't resemble a pure white, and neither does Arcade White by Behr Paint. It's definitely more of an off-white, so I want to get into some details on this color specifically. But more than that, I want to help put together a bit of a color palette for you to work alongside Arcade White, including a light, medium, and dark color, as well as an off-white paint color to work alongside it. If you're not totally familiar with Behr Paint, they're a pretty large paint company that you can find at your local Home Depot store, assuming you live near one. I know we have a lot of international paint people watching, so maybe you don't have a Home Depot locally. But even if that's the case, you can pretty easily get Arcade White, or pretty much any color, matched into whatever paint you choose. So the first thing that I like to do when reviewing a color is check out its LRV, or its light reflectance value. And we can find this, in this case, on the Behr website, on the color page for Arcade White. You can see it right over here next to the acronym LRV. It's 83. All this means is, as a color, Arcade White reflects 83% of the light that hits it. I guess you could say it scores an 83 out of 100 on the lightness scale. That's kind of the easiest way for me to think of LRV. So 83, pretty dang high. But Arcade White still feels a bit more like an off-white rather than a pure white. And that's because of its coloration. It has a very small amount of beige and yellow warmth, but it's mixed with a touch of taupe, which ends up being a combination of gray and brown as well. It's a pretty passive color overall and doesn't jump out at you with its saturation. It's extremely subtle, and that's just because colors that are this light don't really have a ton of colorant in them. It really feels like a true neutral paint color through and through. And the fact that it's so light means you'll never have to worry about a room feeling too dark when using it. You know what though? I swear, there are some people that can look at a bright white wall and say, yeah, that's a bit darker than I thought it would be. Only teasing. I think you sometimes need to tread softly when using paint colors that are this light on larger areas, inside and especially outside. The thing is, the more light you throw at colors like this, the brighter they appear. Obviously, but you also begin to lose some of those subtle undertones that make them unique, and your paint color that you spent so much time deciding on just looks washed out and kind of dull. Long story short, lighter isn't always better. So let's talk about some color pairings that I picked for Arcade White. If you're new to our channel, I like to pick 4 color pairings ranging from white to light to medium to dark. Starting with the light color, which is kind of the most relevant to a lot of people, it is the more clearly yellowy color called Chanoyu. And now we have an 80 LRV color that is nearly as bright and light as Arcade White, but as you can see, there's definitely more noticeable warmth here. In fact, when you put Chanoyu next to Arcade White, only one of these two looks like they have any yellow. And Chanoyu has kind of a lot of it. In an actual room with an even distribution of both colors, you may have some of that yellow bouncing off of Chanoyu onto Arcade White, giving both of them the appearance of yellow, but that all depends on your lighting and your space. So to me, I classify Chanoyu as a nearly neutral, in the sense that it's not overly vibrant as a paint color, objectively, but it just looks that way next to Arcade White. It will make a subtle statement, so just be mindful of how you use it and to what extent. Normally, light colors like these can be used in a fairly balanced fashion, and they still can in this case, but I would probably rely more on Arcade White and then have Chanoyu in more of a lesser role. That is, unless you love and want to lean into that yellow undertone, then you can flip the script on these two colors. If you're looking for a middle, kind of mid-tone color, I wanted to take things into a different direction and give you Hush, which is actually a blue-based gray with an LRV of 54. It really feels pretty balanced as a color, where the undertones are more subtle, but it definitely feels a lot cooler overall. It's a fantastic choice for those rooms that you don't mind feeling maybe a little more fresh fresh and contemporary, where Arcade White may suit traditional decor a little more, and Hush caters more towards transitional interior design. Not always the case, but those cooler colors like Hush can suit modern furnishings and accessories a little bit easier because they can use more metals and metallics, which are cooler, generally speaking. Our deep color pairing is kind of a fusion of the light and mid-tone colors in a strange way, I guess, where you start with a base of blue and then you add a hint of yellow, giving you something resembling green. But not just any green, we have Behr Paint's sophisticated teal for our dark color. I'm a bit biased towards green lately, so don't be surprised why I opted for one in this palette. But I felt like if I went for something warmer like an emerald or a hunter green, it wouldn't really do a perfect job at coordinating Hush and Shinoyu specifically. That's ultimately what I'm doing here, because Arcade White on its own will work alongside pretty much any color, or at least a large majority of them. And the way that you use these colors together is all up to you. If you just want something more blue-based, then you have Arcade White, Hush, and Sophisticated Teal. But if you like the warmer colors, get rid of Hush, keep the teal, keep that Shinoyu, that nice yellow, and you're all good. We finish off with the white color pairing option, and I wanted to go with something bright, but still had a bit of a tangible warmth present, and that color is Crystal Cut, a 91 LRV paint color to give you some noticeable difference in lightness next to Arcade White. Not necessarily as much as I want normally, but it'll do. Just this once. I'm also a fan of White Pepper, which you can watch a video on right over here, just a bit darker than Arcade White, so it could be an even better choice for your home.